Hi, Vanessa Golightly from Ray White Real Estate in Christchurch. I'm here today with Elizabeth Goulding from our McPherson Property Management team. Elizabeth's here today to talk to us about why we'd use the services of a property management team and office, and what are the advantages and benefits to me. So Elizabeth, I've just bought my first rental property. I was thinking, oh well, this should be easy. I'll put an ad in the paper and find some tenants. No, not so easy.
Clearly it's about more than just the first person who rocks through the door, you know, and the money in the bank. Obviously it is good to get that rent coming in, but a little bit more care and process probably needs to happen. Biggest thing is risk management. You need to make sure those people are who they say they are, that the references are solid.
Right, so let's start from there. So you've been entrusted with my property to manage, and you need to start, advertising with tenants or finding tenants. What's the process that you put those people through before you trust them with my property?
From the viewing, obviously we meet them at that point. They then submit their applications. We would then review those. We do check their current tenancy, their previous tenancy. If they haven't rented for a while, we'll check their other referees that have been supplied. We verify their income. You do actually need to be able to afford to pay the rent at the end of the day. We check the credit just to check that we're not in the queue. We check national tenancy databases, we check tribunal orders. We need to make sure that these people are solid before we can refer them.
Great. Now you talk about the viewing, so am I showing people through my property, or is it something that you do as well?
What we do, it's a lot like selling a property. So when you're leasing a house, it's all about presentation and getting people through. It is numbers. So we need to have a well-presented property that is priced fairly on the current market. So we have a member of our team, their job specifically is to handle that inquiry and get the people through. So by appointment, or if the property is vacant, we would then arrange viewings for those people to come through, and from that we would provide the feedback.
Okay, great. So you show the property, screen the tenants, put tenants in the property. Then what happens? Is it just we wait till the tenancy ends and go through that again, or? Having
selected a tenant that we're both happy, so that's our office and you, the investor.
So I do get a say in it as well?
Absolutely. Basically we work with your instruction. So depending on the type of lease that you're looking for, so if you're looking for a fixed term or shorter term, periodic lease, that would be the type of lease that would be drafted, the terms would be accepted, and the tenant would be inducted and the contract signed. Okay, right, that's interesting. Okay, so we've rented, I'm happy with the tenant, you're happy with the tenant. What happens from there? Start of the tenancy, we benchmark the property. Property management, the biggest part of our job is risk management, so it's really important that we put a line in the sand and say this is the state of the property, and that's agreed from day one. So we would do an extensive entry report, which is a surface by surface report of the property, so walls, floors, ceilings, marks, dents, scratches. We photograph it to support it. That is given to the tenants. A copy is also given to our owners, and everybody is in agreement. So it's what the bond is tied to, obviously with an allowance for fair wear and tear, but just saves that whole discussion perhaps 12 months down the track where someone said, oh, it's like that when I moved in. Well, actually this is the agreed condition. Great. Okay, so in regards to inspections during the year, how often would your team go through, and how often would I get a report on the status of my property? From the original entry, which is the basis for our routine inspections, our team will do one at the first 6 weeks, and it's really just to make sure everything's going okay. That the tenant's settled down, and if it's a new property, maybe if there are any little quirks or something that would become apparent, and we can follow through. From that, a written report. We use our iPads, we use the software program there, so it's sent again to the owners and to the tenants. It's exactly the same report, so everybody can see what is happening, and thereafter we would do a quarterly inspection. Okay. Now at these inspections, is there anything sort of that commonly comes up that perhaps if I wasn't using a property manager and sort of only went and saw my property when the tenants are moving out, what are the things you'd most often come up or probably biggest ones are things that can really blow out, things like water related, so washers, leaking taps inside cupboards, joinery is really huge. Tenants do have a duty of care to mitigate loss or damage to the property, so it's important that we're picking up on this early.
Okay.
We can help plan maintenance schedules, perhaps if we've got older style properties and we're needing to spread the work there. Keeping on top of trees, shrubs, gutters, all those sorts of seasonal things come into it as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So if any of this work needs to be done, I mean, I may be an out-of-town landlord or just a very busy person. Do you help me organise the work that needs to be done? Or?
Absolutely. On a management authority, we have a couple of options, and one of those options does include a maintenance schedule there, and the fees. So if you are outside of town and don't have preferred contractors, we're happy to use our own. Okay. Having said that, if you have your own contractors, you can nominate them and we would send the work to be done. We work with your instruction.
Okay, great. Now, what would be some of the other things? So we've covered the finding of the tenants and the screening of the tenants, the setup of the tenancy and the inspections, and then the regular inspections as well. What are some of the other things that my property manager might end up having to deal with for me?
Compliance with the Residential Tenancy Act and the contract that has been agreed. Okay. Clearly paying the rent is a given. We do have an arrears policy and it's made very clear to our tenants. We do follow strictly with that policy and procedure.
Okay, so if they don't pay their rent, then that's something that you'll obviously help me out with?
Absolutely. If you're not getting paid, we aren't either, and none of us like working for nothing. So definitely, we send out breach notices pretty quickly. We seek applications for mediation, and we seek possession orders at 21 days if we can with the tribunal. But absolutely, all systems are rigorously followed up. Arrears, it's an important part of our team's daily tasks.
Okay, just out of interest, if I was a private landlord and my tenants were in arrears, which may take me a while to sort of notice or figure out, generally how long would it take a private individual to follow the process and chase up the arrears versus how swiftly your team can act?
I guess it depends on how accurate their record keeping is. I mean, by law, all owners are required to keep a ledger. It's our experience that a lot of owners have some confusion between paid to dates and the rent or the day on which they receive rent. So for some of our owners, they don't actually pick up that they're in arrears until it's too late. Okay. From our system, it's from day one. Okay,
and I can't just go around and knock on their door and
tempting as it might be, unfortunately not. What we would normally do on that very first day, we tend to use the old text. It works really well. Okay. People respond quite quickly. From there, they do get a phone call, and from there we serve up the breach to remedy.
Great.
So just one step follows the next.
Okay, no worries. And so as an owner, do I need to have any involvement with my tenants at all if I've got a property manager?
You can be as involved as you would like. We welcome our owners on our open for inspections. Our requirement from an owner's involvement is that they give the tenant the courtesy and the legal notice that is required if they're going to attend the property.
Okay, no, great. So anything else you could help me with, or any other tips, or?
Look, working together the whole way. I mean, we work with our owners' instructions. We're not just there to collect the rent. We want to improve our owners' wealth. We're looking to manage the property as efficiently as possible with the best tenants, getting them the best returns. We're looking to plan the maintenance. We're looking at the type of properties our owners are looking at. Maybe if you're an older type investor, the portfolio that you're managing currently might not match with where you're at. So we work with our sales team. We also work with finance division. So Simon there is doing investment advice for a lot of our investors as well. They're looking to purchase new properties. So we're trying to put together an overall package.
Right, so I may start off with one or two properties and then your team will help guide me in regards to the direction my portfolio might need to go in. Okay,
most definitely.
So in regards to returns, how do you know how much to charge for rent for my property and how often would that be reviewed?
Appraisals, we do, depending on type of lease. So if we have a fixed term tenancy in place, we tend to review in the last 90 days of the lease where it's sitting in the market, and we will be having that discussion. If we are offering renewal to our tenants, those terms need to be in place before the last 60 days of that tenancy.
Okay.
Otherwise it's 60 days from that period of time. So
Right.
we're getting a fair bit of notice. If the tenants are giving notice, it still leaves time in hand to advertise it at the current market rate.
Okay, so it is continually something you guys will keep up to
Always
date for me
ongoing.
and
Absolutely.
make sure up with the market.
There is provision in a fixed term tenancy to actually have an increase inbuilt.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that you will do. A lot of our Christchurch owners may not be aware, but if you advertise the property and it's written in as a term and condition, you can have a rent review at 180 days.
Okay, it's interesting. Most people assume if it's a fixed term tenancy that you can't change the rent. I mean, that was, my common understanding as well. So there you go, learn something new.
Yeah.
Now, just in regards to the tenants themselves, obviously, we were all tenants once upon a time, probably as student and such. How well do you look after the tenants and keep up the communication with them?
It's a hugely important relationship. Many of our owners are our tenants. People lease properties for all sorts of reasons. Obviously, Christchurch has got a pretty crazy market. People are here for EQ related. There's a much broader community than we had previously. We spend a lot of time with our tenants. We have an induction at the beginning of it because it is important to us to make sure the property is set up, that the tenants have a clear understanding of the policy and what to do if there are emergencies, who they should contact, and just how our systems work.
Great, and so if they need to get a hold of someone in your team 24/7?
Absolutely, we have a 24-hour number they can call through, and it goes 24 hours.
Great. Now, you were mentioning earlier you have a Tenant of the Month competition.
Yes, we do. Clearly, paying the rent, keeping the house tidy should be a given. Some people respond well to incentives, and we have some fabulous tenants who maintain and keep our properties. But we do offer free movie tickets. We have a draw. Each team member gets to nominate who they think. Students tend to be quite keen on it. And as I was just saying before, we are thinking of having a whole new category for Christmas. Some of our tenants get very excited at Christmas time.
Great. Now, obviously, last question, the most important question to a lot of landlords. Obviously, it's about the dollars. What would it cost me to use a property manager?
I have to say we have two options. We'd be very happy to come and discuss it with you. And at the end of the day, our fees are tax deductible.
Okay, great. Look, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to give Elizabeth a call anytime at the property management team, or you can alternatively email her as well, obviously if you're overseas and that's easier. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found that useful and interesting.